Cool. So, hello everybody. Um, my name is Wesley Crawford. I'm here with the Portland Film Festival, bringing you another director's chat this morning. We have six people we're going to be talking to this hour, all talking about their wonderful films that are screening at pdxff.com. Before we get started, I want to welcome everybody to the film festival held by Comcast. We want to thank the Comcast team's tremendous support and commitment to independent filmmakers. Their ongoing support ensures that diverse voices are given a platform to share their unique perspectives on the world. We'd also like to thank Corner Camera, Cleaner Path, SAG-AFTRA, Plumtree Mortgage, and Oregon Film. You can find out more information or watch all these films we're about to be talking about at pdxff.com. So, today I'm going to be chatting with six directors. They're going to tell us a little bit about their movie. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on Anthony Nguyen to talk about his film, Farming Slowly. Hey, Anthony, how's it
Hi,
going?
everyone. Good. Great. How are you?
I'm also good. Luckily, audio is good so far. So,
Great, man.
yeah. So, why don't you introduce yourself and your film?
Yeah, so my name is Anthony Nguyen. I grew up in Virginia, just outside of DC, and moved to Los Angeles to do filmmaking. I didn't go to college, what you normally do college, but I learned how to make films from making YouTube videos, and I made a feature when I was 18 back home, and then that helped me to come out to LA and start working right away in the film industry, and then from there I just wrote and directed stuff on my own.
Nice. So how did Farming Slowly come to be?
Yeah, so farming slowly, it's about my cousin and about her farming journey. And so me and her are pretty close. So when in college, she was like looking to see what major she wanted to do, and she was kind of floating between a lot of things. When she found farming, I kept in contact with her and kept up with what she was doing. And when she actually rented out a farm and started to grow her own vegetables, and then at one point got to sell her produce at a farmer's market and started to make some profit from it. I think that was the time where I thought that that would be a good time to tell her story about how this Vietnamese American a woman who kind of didn't want to go the status quo path of, like, say, engineer or office job or lawyer, and decided to go her own path to pursue what she wanted to do, which is farming, which is not really the normal path for any person, regardless, or mostly like an Asian American. So that was interesting in itself, and then to because she was so passionate and driven about what she wanted to do with her farming and to build a community around her food and her farm. I thought that was a really interesting story. And her philosophy on, like, farming slowly, like taking care of the land, making sure the crops are of high quality versus trying to pump out produce for people. I think that was really a good philosophy to live by.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that sounds really neat. So what was it like, sort of like documenting your cousin? Because in a way, it's like you're both at work together, right?
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun because, like we have a lot of inside jokes, and like say, like when she was digging up carrots, and she was wrapping them together. It's like the carrots have like a like a like a leaf, and she kind of wraps it like a ponytail. So she's like, oh, it's just like tying a ponytail together, or like just like stupid like jokes, like we make like beat jokes, and she has a nickname at a farmer's market, broccolini girl, because she's the only person that grows broccolini on that market. So it's just like stupid stuff like that, and we have a lot of fun because yeah, and she made me like shovel compost, which is so hard, pull up weeds, which is so hard, and I think filmmaking is hard, but her job is way harder.
She took you to school, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Put the camera down. Start shoveling. That's so
Basically, I was like, let me just film you. You can do all the work.
funny. So how long was production, like shooting and editing and the process?
Yeah. So I spent 4 days So Thursday and Friday is kind of like her normal everyday farming day. Saturday is harvest day, which is the hardest day on of the week, where she gets everything prepped for to go to market. And she says the hardest thing is when the sun comes out. So when the sun comes out, and she has like the crops already harvested into like bins, they start to wilt when they come in contact with the sun. So she tries to like hurry and get the crops back into the shade and into water so they can be plump again for the Sunday harvest. So that's a really busy day. And so I filmed the 2 days before Harvest Day and then Market Day. And then I did another day where she does something called CSA, which is pretty popular in Portland. It's community supported agriculture, where people support her with like, say like a subscription almost at the beginning of the year for her to have the money to buy seeds, buy equipment. But throughout the season, they get fresh produce firsthand, or like first dibs on it.
Wow, that's interesting. I never heard about that
Yeah,
before.
it's great. I think it's a really great idea. Yeah, I wish they have something like that in LA, but they probably do it, probably just on a smaller level. But I hear Portland is pretty big on
Yeah, that's cool. I've already learned so much just chatting with you,
that.
but what's one thing you kind of hope viewers take away from the film after watching it?
Yeah. So I end the film with Catherine saying, if you want to, you know, learn more about organic farming, or just learn more about food or what farmers do, Catherine says just get into a conversation with your farmer who grows your food. If you go to a farmer's market, just talk to them, because they're really interested. If they're doing this kind of stuff, and they're doing it on a small level, they're really interested in the food and what they grow. So I would say, just get into contact with or talk to your farmer. But on another level, I just want those who are looking for the next thing in their life, or the next path in their life, that to be passionate as she is, and to be driven about something. I think that's very, very important, versus trying to find like a desk job, or a job that pays well, because the passion will carry you through, uh, and eventually that'll, in my opinion, eventually that'll turn into a profit. So just be passionate and be driven about what you want to do, and hopefully you can find that passion, because a lot of people can't.
Yeah, great, great tip. Wise words. Cool. So, what do you have any other projects coming up that you're working on that you maybe in the works you want to talk about?
Yeah, I the quarantine has helped me write a lot. So I'm working on a horror musical. So it's got like a dark feel, and it's about a girl who is wrongly accused of killing her younger brother, and her parents put her in an asylum. And when she's in asylum, she sings about like her innocence, like meets a boy there, falls in love, and so they have like a love duet. And so it's a fun like musical about her trying to prove her innocence, trying to get out. The warden is, of course, the bad guy, so she's trying to fight him. So I think that'll be a fun thing. We produced 3 songs so far, the first 3 songs, and so we're trying to use that along with a script and a outline to pitch it, to hopefully find some funding for it.
Yeah, nice. Well, that sounds really exciting, really unique. Eager to see where it goes.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for chatting with us, Anthony.
yeah. Thanks, man. This is great. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. You can watch Anthony's film Farming Slowly at pdxff.com, along with all the other movies we're talking about today. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you.
And yeah, of course. So next up, we're going to be talking to, let me see the full. Hannah Giske. Hello. And
Hi.
am I saying that right? Giske?
Giske, yeah, it's a Norwegian name. I'm based in Norway, so I'm talking from Oslo, Norway right now. Yeah.
Gotcha. So why don't you introduce yourself and your film for the people watching that? Even more. You're in Norway. Good start.
Yeah, and it's 7 p.m., so the timing is perfect.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's evening. And my name is Hannah Giske, and I'm mainly actually an actor and a writer. But then I decided a couple of years back that I wanted to try, because I love movies, so I wanted to make a short film. So we started a film collective called, in Norwegian, Frognerkontoret. It doesn't really mean make sense in English, but it's named after this place I used to live. In 2017, we had this kitchen in this big shared collective, and we basically named it after the kitchen, Frognerkontoret. And then we started making one film, and it turned actually into a trilogy. And the film Lobsterium is the second film of the trilogy. So it's basically the second film I directed, but it feels like the first.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So you started a film collective? Is just can you talk a little bit about that experience? How it's going?
Well, it started with my ex-boyfriend. He had a big film studio, so I was able to borrow a bunch of equipment from him, like a Red camera and a lot of lighting and stuff for the first film. The title of that is Insecten, like in insect. And then after having made that, we weren't quite done with it, but we decided on just making another one right away. But then I was not together with him anymore, so we found some other equipment.
Gotcha.
I lived in this beautiful apartment that you will see in the film. It's filmed in this old building in Oslo, in this neighborhood that kind of looks like Paris. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful part of town in Oslo. So that's where we shot this film. So I'm really happy with the way it looks in the scenography. And then we decided on making a new.
Sorry, Hannah, really quick, could you try maybe holding your mic if it's on the cable? I think it might be scratching a little bit.
Oh,
do you have a mic do you have a mic on a wire, or is it stationary?
Oh, I'm using my computer microphone.
Alrighty, it's all good. I mean, I can still hear you. It's just the little scuffing, but I can still hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I should probably have an external. Yeah.
No worries. Oh, it's all good. I'm so sorry I cut you off. Please finish your thought.
It's okay. So Lobsterium is film number 2 of a trilogy. The third film is not done yet. But of the 2 first films, Insecten and Lobsterium, we decided to push Lobsterium out into the world. And this will actually be our premiere. Oh,
wow. Here at the Portland Film Festival.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, we're honored to be hosting it. How did this trilogy become a trilogy? What sort of made you want to tell that story this way, or tell these stories this way, right?
Good question. All of the films are about identity and about feeling split, or what's the word? Dissociation. Yeah. And that's been such a big theme for me as an artist and everything that I write, really, because I guess I've had moments in my life where I feel a little split, and then I'm always trying to find myself and find. And in this film, Lobsterium, it's about this longing for the ocean, for flow, for being at one with everything and whole, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just been a big topic in everything that I write, really.
Yeah, it's important.
So
Cool answer. Yeah. Well, so what was production like on Lobsterium or in Insectum, the first one with the collective? You know, like or well, actually, better question. What was the biggest challenge in production for you and getting this movie together?
well, I'm acting in the films, so I had to, of course, find a co-director,
Right.
and his name is Tor Orrestad, and he's not able to be here today, unfortunately. But my first challenge was like, oh, I I have written these films. I want to act in them myself, but how can I direct myself while I'm acting? So he got the job on set, but then I have been directing it, of course, beforehand and afterwards,
Right.
finding the music and doing basically done a lot of the production myself. Afterwards, I have not edited it. I've a great editor called Annie has done that. So this is really like a female-driven film. Actually, there are a lot of females working on it.
Love to see it. Yeah, that's all. That is really that's quite the undertaking, acting and directing. You know, like two at once. So, but it sounds like you got the work split sort of figured out to where you kind of had a flow. So that's neat.
I love it. I love it. It's fun. I want to do it again.
uh, so, what upcoming projects do you have in the works? What would you like to talk about today?
Well, we are, of course, it's the third film of the trilogy called Undulatum. And the word undulatum, undulat in Norwegian means budgie, like the bird.
Oh, okay. Nice.
But undulatum is also the name of I think a Greek tree, like a special kind of tree in Greece. So it's got like double meaning. So that film is in sound editing right now. So that will be done next year, or maybe this December. So we're working on that, and then my next project after that is a film I have written where I will act, but not direct. I've another director is coming in, and I'm really happy about that because I love just acting as well.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to just relax and just be directed and not having to worry about all the stuff afterwards.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's really exciting. So it sounds like you got a fun, busy year ahead of you. So,
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff happening all of a sudden, actually. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Hannah.
thank
Of
you.
course, you can watch her film Lobsterium, pdxff.com. The premiere of her film.
Yeah, it's our world premiere.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you got to go check it out. You can see that at pdxff.com. Like always. Thank you so much, Hannah. Can't wait to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. So next up on the docket, next director we're having a chat with is director Lily Nelson.
Hey,
Hey, Lily. How's it going?
It's going good. How are you doing?
I'm also good. I'm also good. Been chatting with some very creative minds so far today. I'm like energized. You know?
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and introduce your film?
So my name is Lily Nelson. I'm out of North Carolina, and I directed, wrote, and I use that term loosely, acted in, produced, did some editing on a film called Thumb War. It is a Christopher Guest style mockumentary about competitive thumb wrestling, which is a thing.
That's I did not realize the extent of thumb wrestling. Why don't you, or well, here, let me get this fixed real quick. Apologies.
Absolutely.
Cool. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Look at that. The magic of technology. All
There
right.
you go.
Cool. I'm curious. So you said you were a screenwriter on this film. What does that entail in a documentary like this?
Well, because it is a mockumentary and we're making everything up as we go, basically, I wrote an outline and I said, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. Here is your character. I'm going to ask you this list of questions. If you want me to give you the list, great. If you don't, I won't. But I'm going to ask you questions and you are going to answer as the character. And at some point, I may say, hey, can you say this? And so I might say, hey, okay, that's great. Could you say thumb wrestling is the sport of kings? And they would just say it as the character.
Wow, that's so interesting. Like such a unique approach. What was casting like and finding performers for this or the
Well, for the most part, honestly, what ended up happening is I was getting ready to do the 48-hour film festival 3 or 4 years ago with some friends of mine, and I was just going to be an actor. And you sometimes brainstorm ahead of time so that you can kind of say, okay, if we get this, then this is what kind of an idea. And I said, when we got to the phrase mockumentary, I said we should totally do a mockumentary about competitive thumb wrestling. And so a couple of years later, I was shooting some scenes for my reel, and I had been taking this amazing Meisner class with this woman named Wendy Ward out of Durham, North Carolina. And several of my fellow students said, who had helped me be in scenes with me so that I could actually give a wider range, do those parts that I don't really get to do. They said, I mentioned it as a joke when I was a little bit inebriated, and they said, we want to do that. And so what ended up happening was people came in and we got a bunch of people together who I knew through the class, and they said, I will help produce this, and this is the kind of character I want. Let's figure it out. And that's been kind of how it was.
Wow, that sounds really fun, really collaborative, like a fun environment.
Mhm.
So would you consider it like an improvisational set then, like a lot of riffing and
Yeah, a lot of improvisation, a lot of just
uh,
setting up a scenario and go. So very heavy on the Meisner.
right? That's definitely probably a pretty rewarding thing to direct, right? Because it's like how much control can you really have?
Yeah,
Um, I guess that's true for any movie. Um,
exactly.
what was your biggest challenge in producing this movie and getting it all put together?
Uh, well, because a lot of people who chose to be in it they put some amazing performances out, and quite a few of them have never been on screen before, which I think is a crime against humanity, honestly. They're amazing performers and they've just never been on screen. Some of them it was their first time acting in a movie, some of them it was their first time acting, period. At least in front of another group of people. So it was the biggest challenge just kind of came in because they're not professional actors and they have real lives, real jobs, was scheduling life so that people could be available for a shoot.
Right. Scheduling seems like the death knell for so many films.
Hmm.
But just goes to show how much work goes into these movies. Makes you appreciate it more on the back end.
Yeah, I mean, it only took us. I scheduled out 2 weeks. We shot it in a week and a half.
Wow, that's impressive.
Shooting a 57-minute movie in a week and a half is a speedy pace.
Yeah. um, well, so quick finish. That's good. What was another sort of rewarding moment from the process, like idea to screen?
I mean, honestly, I enjoyed how much we laughed on set because it was so ridiculous and it was just us having a good time and spending some time together. I think the most rewarding thing was how much laughter was on the set because you do get on some sets because I mean, this is the first time I've really directed something in over 15 years.
Wow.
So it's I'm an actor for hire 99.9% of the time. So it was just so rewarding to laugh, because you've been on sets. We've all been on sets where everybody's so serious and so down and so dour, and just to be able to laugh as much as we did at each other, and to have to fight back the tears of laughter when there were certain things that were happening, was just a wonderful experience.
I bet. Yeah, sounds like a great time. So you typically act, but you step behind the camera for this one. What's kind of something you felt like you brought with you as an actor to being a director? Was there anything like that?
Well, I mean, I also acted in it, but I think the thing that I do bring is I get what it is to be an actor, so I understand how hard it is and how pressuring it is to actually do films, especially if it is your first time ever being on screen, just to get that opportunity. And I realized that how much pressure there was, and for some of them, even it was just the first time they'd ever said a word on screen. And I'm going, nope, I get it. Take your time. We scheduled everything out so you have time. Let's just enjoy it. And I think there's something to be said about a director, more than being able to talk to people on set, being able to talk to an actor and understand when you have to push a little bit, when you can let things go, when you have to put your foot down and when you don't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I mean, it says a lot about the director, the person leading the set. If you can have fun, especially with new. I mean, because that could be such a stressful environment. So it's great to hear that you enjoyed it, and you made it fun for the actors.
mhm.
So what do you have any upcoming projects you'd like to talk about? Anything in the works?
Well, I mean, not so much in the works, but I kind of get to be fancy at the festival, because I actually have two films at the festival. One I directed and acted in with Thumb War, and the other one I'm just an actor in, and it's a film called Electric Jesus. And it's also screening at the festival.
Yeah.
So I get to be like, I'm in two movies.
You,
So
yeah. You want to say a quick thing about Electric Jesus?
Electric Jesus is kind of it's a movie about a 80s Christian heavy metal hair band in the South. So I'm leading the comedy here these days. I mean, it's so dour these days with what's going on. I'm just going to lead the comedy at this point.
It's a noble pursuit. Yeah, that's a great log line.
And I mean,
Um,
everything else I have project wise next year is plays. I'm acting in a whole bunch of plays, like Steel Magnolias and Girls and Boys. I get to do a one woman show. So I'm a happy little camper.
yeah, that sounds awesome. That sounds really exciting. I'm excited to watch Thumb War.
Please do. It's awesome.
Yeah, everybody can at pdxff.com. Thank you so much for chatting with us, Lily.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy the world premiere of Thumb War.
Oh, I will for sure. I think we all will. Like everyone else. Thank you so much, Lily.
Thank
You can check
you.
out her film, Thumb War at pdxff.com. Cool. So next up for our next director in this little chat window is Jamie Jacobson. Hello, Jamie.
Hi, Wesley. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So why don't you introduce yourself and your film?
Yeah, okay. So yes, my name is Jamie Jacobson. I'm based in Colorado right now, just kind of north of Denver in Fort Collins. And my film is called The Last Artifact, which I produced and directed with a great friend and colleague of mine, Ed Watkins. And the film, basically, kind of in a nutshell, it follows the high-stake race to redefine the weight of the world. And we follow kind of the untold story of one of what is really could be considered one of the most important objects on the planet, which is the kilogram. And for those who don't know, the kilogram, it's just this little kind of hunk of metal, some people call it, enclosed in bell jars underground in a vault just outside of Paris. And scientists realized that this measurement standard, it was forged in the late 1800s, and it's what we use to compare everything against. So when you weigh yourself on a bathroom scale or you buy drugs in the pharmacy, they've all been calibrated and measured in conjunction with this object, this piece of metal. And scientists realized it was changing. It was no longer stable. So they set off on a decades-long project, really, to come up with a new way to redefine how we weigh and measure everything in the world. And this topic, it's a very kind of STEM topic, super technical. It's about an inanimate object. It's something I never in a million years originally would have thought of making a movie about, a documentary about. Because the central character is not even a person, it's this hunk of metal.
Yeah.
But Ed, who I went to film school with, we went to a program at Montana State University in science and natural history filmmaking. So it teaches people who have a science background how to make nonfiction films and other type of media. And Ed saw an announcement for a federal grant to make this film. And we thought, gosh, what a strange topic. But if anybody should be able to make this movie and make it interesting and beautiful, it should be us. Like, this is what we've been trying to do. So we applied for the grant, and we ended up getting it. And it's been one of the most quirky and unusual and challenging documentaries I've ever had the pleasure to produce and direct and work on.
Gosh, I bet. Yeah, it's so unique. Yeah, it's a movie about the kilogram. That's so interesting. So, what was sort of the research process and sort of the production process like for a film like this, where it's about a piece of metal, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the unique things about this project is that it's really showcases a global effort. Scientists around the world, they're called metrologists. They study the science or the art of measurement, have been working for decades to try and redefine the kilogram, basically using an equation instead of a physical artifact. And so one of the things we wanted to do in making the movie was really showcase that this is like a global endeavor that people from cultures and countries across the planet are working on. And there's so few things that we can really, I think, as a society or as a species, come together on. So that was a really, fascinating part of the project, that there was that element here in metrology. And we ended up traveling to 6 different countries around the globe: the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Canada, Japan, and the United States. And we profiled teams in all of those nations. And really, our effort was to try and showcase that this is like this collective global effort of scientists working around the clock to secure the measurement system upon which all life depends, really.
Yeah. Wow, that's super interesting.
Yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh,
I was going to research, like, a lot of it was, talking to the scientists themselves and trying to understand their process, a lot of long interviews. And everything I really know about metrology today, I think, is thanks to the brilliant physicists and chemists and engineers that we had the pleasure to profile for this story.
Wow, that's yeah, that is really so. What was a little bit more about production? What was it like, sort of balancing like the information and the story, like the globe and the stakes of it, right? What was yeah? What was that like?
That's a great question. I think I had a searing, like, close to migraine headache after every shoot from the just amount of like information I was getting, learning about, quantum mechanics and stuff that was really challenging for me to understand. Like, a lot of my other projects, to be honest, have had more of a kind of humanities, social science slant, looking into social justice issues and how humans interact with the environment. So this was really unknown territory. But that's, kind of one of the things I love about documentary filmmaking, is it allows you to come across people and topics that you never would have come across otherwise in everyday life. But it was really challenging, kind of, and really interesting, actually, traveling to different nations and sort of seeing like the different ways people communicate and the different ways people operate. Sort of, there's the lab itself, there's a language within the lab, but then outside of that, some people like to have everything kind of organized and spelled to the T, and others were very sort of free floating. So it was really an exercise, for us, not only learning the science, but sort of the social science behind how do you work across cultures and so many different cultures. And so we really, over the course of, I think we wrote the grant in 2016 and were selected in early 2017, right around the new year. And we spent about 2 years traveling across the globe filming, trying to document this effort. And we kind of realized actually a lot of the work had already happened by the time we got the grant. So some of it was really trying to, figure out, well, how do we capture things that aren't unfolding in real time that already happened, or things that are, where it's like, oh, this meeting's happening like in 2 days and we need to be in Paris all of a sudden, So it was kind of a mix of sort of hurry up and sort of figuring out how to convey kind of the chronology when you're sort of chasing after the story, if you will. And we spent about 2 years filming, leading up to a big conference in Versailles in France, where representatives from over 100 nations across the globe came together and voted on whether we should redefine the kilogram or not. And that was really the culmination of the story. The kilogram was forged in France, and then we all kind of found ourselves back in France at the very end. We spent about a year doing production in the studio. We used a lot of children. I have 2 little children. They're 2 and 4 now, Boutros and Ariana. And a lot of their friends came into the studio to help us illustrate really complex scientific concepts using kind of toys and everyday objects, which is super fun. And, completed the edit and studio production. And then we're getting ready to release the film, finish the post in late 2019, and early 2020. It was like, okay, we're ready. Here we come, world. And ready to share this project across the planet. And then the pandemic struck. So it's been a really interesting, process. Actually, I love opportunities like this where it's like still finding ways to virtually share the project with so many people. And it's been just a really, really interesting experience.
Pandemic's been weird, but I mean, just goes to show how much work goes into documentary filmmaking, especially 2 years of shooting for an hour-long movie. So that's awesome. What are some? Do you have any upcoming projects you'd like to talk about? Anything in the works?
Yeah, that's a great question, Wesley. So this project is interesting. I've kind of dabbled in both freelance filmmaking and academia, and I currently I'm a filmmaking professor in journalism and media communications at Colorado State University. And so this film is a feature-length documentary for international distribution. And as you mentioned, we were traveling across the planet, and it's kind of a type of project that I'm super thankful that I was able to do before landing my current position, because, I have a lot of responsibilities to the university now, which in the pandemic, of course, limits travel and ability to be on really intense productions like this. So, I'm looking for new ways to still make films, but that also fit within my new role. And a project that I'm working on right now, it is in collaboration with a group of Venezuelan immigrants and asylum seekers in the Rocky Mountain West. And we're really trying to use a co-creation methodology, which is more about making stories with people rather than about them. So there's some people that I had the chance to meet during my work and studies here that want to tell their stories about the crisis in Venezuela and what it's like to leave home and to lose everything and start from nothing, and questions around identity and family. And, so I think I see this as being more of an interactive web documentary with multiple stories and multiple voices. And really that project I just actually had to shoot last weekend. So it's a really important story, I think, and a totally new way of working that's very different from what I did on The Last Artifact. So that's always exciting. I love keeping things, mixing it up as a filmmaker, trying things new that I've never done before.
Yeah, for sure. Well, co-creative storytelling, is that the term you used?
Yeah, co-creation. It's sort of a broader
yeah.
methodology in documentary that is a more like horizontal, less top-down, and about really collaborating with people in communities and across cultures to tell stories together. So as a filmmaker, I'm more in some ways the facilitator, and we're deciding together, like, what is the narrative? Like, how are we going to tell the story? What's it going to look like? And there's a lot of different ways that may plan out. across different people and places. So it's kind of a grand experiment at this point. But
Sounds exciting. Yes, sounds exciting. Well, The Last Artifact, Jamie's film, is available at Portland Film Festival right now. You can go see it at pdxff.com. Thank you so much for chatting with me, Jamie. Documentary sounds thrilling.
Thank you, Wesley. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and to the Portland Film Festival as well. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Alrighty. Thank you so much, Jamie. Cool. So, moving right along, still have 2 more directors to chat with today. The next one we're going to be talking to is Fernanda to talk about her movie Nest. Hey, Fernanda.
Hi, Wesley. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's nice to chat with you again. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your film for us?
My name is Fernanda. I'm the director of Nest Film, and I'm from Brazil. I'm from the very south of Brazil, so like the opposite of you guys. And the Nest narrative, it's about a collective born through hip hop culture in one of the most contradictory places for it to happen. And they tirelessly kind of seek to make the culture happen, to go to schools, to make trips, to like really support hip hop in a place who people don't really believe in it.
Yeah, it really is a. Oh, continue. No, keep going.
No, you can go.
Sorry. Well, I mean, I was just going to ask you to talk a little bit about how this project came to be, how you decided to tell this story or about these people, and, sort of what inspired you to tell this story.
We kind of knew them because we're from the same place, the same city, and one time we were just talking, and then one of them said, "Oh, we should do a documentary," and we said, "Yeah, we should." And then things started to happen because it was a really interesting story, good narrative, and it was just great.
Yeah, it really is a unique, fascinating film. How long was production? How long did you spend with the Nest people, sort of documenting them and getting your footage?
The entire production, we spent approximately 2 years on it, between all the process. But recording itself, it was about 4 months. We traveled with them to 5 places, I guess, and it was really interesting. I was hearing Jamie's chat, and she said a lot about culture bringing people together, and I guess that's what it is about. We also got to know a lot of slangs and new cultural people, something we would have never done without making this documentary. We would never be in hip hop culture because I'm not from it, and I'm really happy to be a part of it now because it was a really big curve of learning from the moment the film started in our lives.
Yeah. No, it sounds. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, just the fact that it was like we should make a documentary, and now you have a documentary made. That's you're burying the lead there. That's,
it wasn't
so
that
impressive.
easy, but that's basically how I told it. So.
Yeah, you could tell people it was that easy. No, just so much work goes into filmmaking. So what was your biggest challenge in making this movie and production and getting it all to come together?
I guess it was the importance, the weight this film have on a lot of Brazilian people to really, it's like a pressure to, because sometimes a lot of people from hip hop are about to give up on it. And sometimes this one documentary can make a person stay and really change their lives through it. So it was mostly not about filmmaking, but about the effect it had on people, the hip hop culture. But it's not about hip hop itself. We can take this word out of it. It would still be the same movie because it is about a battle, fighting for what you believe in, making culture happen, making culture reach kids, other people, and changing their lives.
Yeah.
So we can be any other culture. It's just that sometimes hip hop gets to places where others don't. It's something like that.
Yeah, it's a great answer. Going off that, what's one thing you learned beyond like slang? You know, what's one thing you learned from this process, from the people you were working with? Something you took away from it?
I learned that unfortunately there is a lot of prejudice about hip hop, especially in our city, our state, because we're like from Italian people, colony, and German. So it is not like hugs and everything about it. So it is really hard, but the persistence, it's a lot. And it was actually our first documentary. It was an adventure from the beginning. And we, like I said, it was pretty much big learning curve for us to make it happen.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, seems like it was such a, an enlightening experience, and the movie really is fantastic. It's one of the ones I've been able to catch already. I wanted to, because we talked a few days ago, and I wanted you to because the film is in it's in Portuguese primarily because it's shot in Brazil, right? And it's subtitled, so most people are going to be watching it with subtitles. Could you said something to me about that I thought was just worth sharing here if you wanted to talk about the subtitles again?
Yeah, especially because it is a documentary, not a short film or anything. A lot of the context, the audio is coming from like everywhere, the songs, the other people talking, not only from the subject itself. So we kind of lose a lot of information with subtitles, and it is really unfortunate. But I hope everyone have a good experience on it. We tried our best.
Right. Yeah. Well, just because it was just so interesting. Because watching it, I was so engaged, and the fact that I only probably got like 80 or 90% of it. So, any upcoming projects for you, Fernanda? Anything you're working on?
We do have some documentary in mind, but nothing we're started working on yet. We actually do work a lot with corporate film, so that's what we're doing now. And that's really a funny story because in the middle when we were recording Nest, there was a trip, and we were like with gangs, with ciphers, in a lot of crazy places we never would have been otherwise. And the next day we're like in a corporate with ties, and the next day. So it's really mixed of different worlds every day for us.
Well, that sounds really unique. Thank you so much for chatting with me, Fernanda. You can watch her film Nest at pdxff.com. Highly recommend it. Great little documentary. Thank you so much for chatting. Yeah, cool. Awesome. It's me again. So moving on, last but certainly not least, we're going to be talking to our next director, Noah Ashraf. All right.
Hi, Wesley. I just want to say shout out to the party, the chat on the YouTube chat, the Brazilian party. They're all like shouting to Fernanda. It's really nice. So I can't wait to see Nest, and I hope they will stay for my chat too.
Yeah, Nest was fantastic.
Yeah, no, there's like a lot of Brazilian in the comments. It's really nice.
Look at all that support. That's
Yes,
great.
totally,
Yeah.
totally.
Cool. So, well, why don't you introduce yourself in your movie?
So my film will be The Comic Relief, I guess. It's a short comedy. It's called Sofa So Good. It takes place in the streets of Brooklyn. It's about a young woman that really, really needs a sofa. Yeah, that's the premise. So she walks around the city and tries to get a sofa, and at the end, we kind of understand why.
Right. Well, that's yeah. No, I mean, great premise. So
Yeah.
so you what was your? Did you write, direct?
Yeah, I
produce?
wrote, directed, produced, because when you write and direct an independent film, you kind of produce it as well.
Yeah.
I worked mostly with comedians in this film. I also produced comedy shows in New York, live comedy shows, and I like working with comics. So a lot of my cast are comedians. The lead role is Natalie Alkar. She's a Lebanese comedian, and that was her main first role as as an actress. She's doing a great job. She's really unique, funny, talented. And I also have and alongside the comedians, I was also able to bring Hiyam Abbas from shows like Rami and Succession, who's like this. She's a really like great actress and a bit more famous than the rest of us, and she really brought her own thing to the film as well, which was really great.
Yeah. No, that sounds super exciting.
Yeah.
So you typically produce live comedy shows. So what made you want to make a short like this?
I'm not typically. I'm a filmmaker.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a filmmaker, but like I'm Israeli and I'm really into comedy. I was always into comedy, and when I moved to New York a few years ago, I just started to go to a lot of comedy shows, and I work as a film producer. And I started to do comedy myself. I started to do stand up because I thought it was a great way to, as someone who writes comedy, it was a great way to improving the language, test your jokes, and just write comedy in a different language. It can be writing in general in different language can be very challenging, and comedy even more than that. So I just started to get into the comedy scene, and I think this short film is kind of like a combination of my work in stand-up and my work in film come together. Yeah, but I want to make more comedies using comedians and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, I have so much respect for anyone who can get up on stage
Oh my
and
God,
tell
me
jokes.
too. I
Oh my
mean,
gosh.
the nice thing is like if you watch my film, you can later find the comedians and watch them do stand-up, which is
Yeah.
like if you have like I don't know there's like a guy called Tom Takar who's also in the film, and he did like sets in Conan and Comedy Central. There's a guy called Omri Angel who's an Israeli comedian who's based in New York, and he's like he has a lot of like viral videos on YouTube. So I kind of build the scenes. I had certain characters I wanted in my mind, but like I built the scenes around certain typecasts, and then I found those typecasts, and we kind of a lot of it like some of the lines are like improvised, and I worked a lot with the comedians to kind of nail it and make it funny. So
Nice.
I hope.
So yeah, so what was the sort of the like what was it like on set, or sort of like with the script? Was it a lot of improv? Were you kind of like these are the
Not a
jokes?
lot, but there are like a few jokes that they brought. I have one scene in so every scene is like a different character that she meets, I will say. So most of it was scripted, but certainly with the scene with the Israeli guy, there's like a lot of improv in it, and some of it like in the scene with the bar with Tom. And then the interesting part was that like at the end of the film, there's a scene between Natalie and her mother, and that scene takes place in Arabic. I speak very basic Arabic. So Natalie and Hiyam, Hiyam Abbas, who plays her mom, they kind of they brought a lot from their own language and dialogue into the scene because they translated it and kind of made it more their own. So that was like very interesting process.
Nice.
I
Yes,
that,
that
yeah.
sounds like it. Yeah, that's neat. So what was your biggest challenge in producing this?
My biggest challenge, I mean, I think always in independent films, and I mean, like the biggest challenge is to find things cheap. and make sure that like you don't compromise on what's important, even though you don't have the budget to do it. Yeah.
Right.
So that's always like the biggest challenge. It's like because once you have everything you need, everything else is great. Like working with the actors and just making things happen. But just getting like just like getting stuff, like getting a bar. Like you need this, you need a bar, you need equipment, that's always like very hard when you're like an independent filmmaker. But it also forces you to think, especially now, actually in the pandemic. It also forces you to think, okay, what do I've got and how can I do things around it? And that's a little bit how I built my script. Like I said, okay, these are the locations I can have. These are like the kind of actors I can have. And I built my script around it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah,
So
totally.
just curious, how big was your producing team? Was it just you?
No, I also had a producer who produced the film. His name is Ben Feinstein. He's a graduate of Columbia University, and I found him through mutual friends. So we kind of like produced the film together, and he was also like the line producer and everything. And then I had like a decent like crew. I always had like a DP, a gaffer, an assistant director that I thought I could do without, and then my friend came and said, "No, you cannot."
Yeah.
so he just
That's one
came
way
and
to give yourself
yeah,
an aneurysm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. And that's basically the team that we had. It was like very small, but like even the more skeleton crew, when you have a set, it's still pretty big. Like you still have a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah,
And
a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure. So do you have any upcoming projects you're working on?
My next project is that I really need to fix my computer. When that is done, I worked in like a short pandemic comedy that I'm now editing. So that's like kind of like related to what I just spoke about, like making something very short. I shot a very short film that it all takes place via Zoom. And it's about a mom and her daughter that try to find a video date for the daughter through Tinder together. Yeah, through like share a screen. And I play the daughter actually. And I found like a great Israeli actress to play the mom. And then I'm working on a script for a full-length feature film that takes like a romantic comedy that takes place in New York. And that's, and that was kind of in the same vibe of like my short film, I would say.
Nice. Well, both those sound super exciting, super funny.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Noah.
I hope we will see them on the big screen. Like watching comedy, it's like, it's very hard not to hear people like, I still didn't get to hear people laugh live for my film. So that's something I'm very looking forward to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, people will definitely be laughing at Sofa So Good.
Yeah, thank you.
They can watch it. Yeah, they can watch it at pdxff.com, like the rest of the movies. Thank you so much for chatting with me, Noah.
Thank you. And thank you, Brazil, for staying for my chat.
We love to see the support. Cool. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Cool. So that concludes the first portion of our director's chat. Thanks again to Anthony, Hannah, Lily, Jamie, Fernanda, and Noah. You can catch all their films at pdxff.com. Before we move on to the next hour of directors, because we've got even more for you, we're going to be showing you some clips for some other films that will be showcased at the film festival. So sit tight and we'll be back shortly.
My name is Katie Cronin. I'm a writer-director based out of Portland, Oregon. My short film, Costumes, is based on my real-life fear of wearing costumes, and we made it with a small but mighty team based here in the Pacific Northwest. I hope you enjoy my film, and I'd like to thank the Portland Film Festival for screening Costumes and all the wonderful films here at the festival. You are going to drive very slowly to Jess's house. You are going to walk efficiently to the door. Enter the party, shot, shotgun, boom, confidence. You just have to set yourself up for success. Every day I just want you.
Hi, my name is Jackie Party Scripps, and I directed the music video for K Astra's Softly Tread. So what really struck me about this song when I initially listened to it was it's got this really like dreamy 70s quality to it. But I thought it would be interesting to juxtapose that kind of light poppy sound with more dark images. When we see K Astra painting the dresses and painting the photos and painting herself, it's her way of externalizing her inner feelings on her outer environment. And it's very abstract and it's very visceral. It can make people feel a lot of different emotions. You can project almost anything onto those images. I'm here in Austin, Texas. I'm a San Antonio native. I love cold brew, great cinematography, and public radio.
Thank you. Hello, we're back. As you can see, I'm at home. I have housemates. That's how it goes sometimes. So thanks again to our first block of filmmakers. I'm excited to see all their films. Super nice chats. We'll be moving on to the next few director chats we've got going on. So without further ado, we're going to get this started with Adrian. Hello. Oh, you're muted.
Hi, I'll just do it again. Hi.
Hello. How's it going?
Good, good. How are you doing?
I'm also good. I had my dad toss in my emergency pick, so
Okay.
we'll
joke with
get the
pets.
hair
It's always important to have
yeah,
pets.
of course. And I'm also turning so we can do my good side. So Adrian, why don't you introduce yourself and your film?
Hi, my name is Adrian Snow. I directed, wrote, produced, and starred in the web series Crazy Sexy Oreos. It's about me as Adrian and my friend Diani, basically just two Black women living in LA, navigating comedy and dating and microaggressions and code switching. So just kind of like a slice of life in a more bizarro version of our lives.
Nice. But yeah, that sounds super interesting. Where'd the title come from?
Well, obviously a big TLC fan over here, but no, so originally with Diani, we were an improv team called Oreo, and originally it was two Black girls, Diani and I, and a middle white woman named Jamie. So it was an Oreo, so two Black girls and a white middle. And then when our middle decided to leave and get married and like go live that life, which I'm still so proud of her for doing, there was a question of if we should change it. And I was like, well, when I offered up the name Oreo for the improv team, I also was using that, yes, as a kind of double meaning where it's a derogatory term for Black people who are perceived as white acting. And I was like, I've been called that a lot of my life. And Diani was like, yeah, I've been called that a lot of my life. And I was like, we should just tweak the name and also just kind of, I'm not saying reclaim it, but just kind of like play with it and make a joke about it, because it is a silly thing to call anyone because they don't fit your perception of how a certain person of a certain race is supposed to behave. And so, and it was a really great moment when we were shooting, because our cinematographer is of Asian descent, our sound mixer is Latina, and we were all going through and talking about what our derogatory names are for when we're white on the middle. So it was like, oh yeah, if you are of any background, there's a version of this for you, which I'm not going to really name right now because they're offensive, but it was just fascinating. Like, oh, everyone has this in their culture where people are like accusing you of not behaving enough as your culture.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that is a pretty interesting title, and yeah, reclaim it, just shake it off, right? So it seems like a pretty personal script. What was sort of the writing process like?
Well, the writing process was a collective experience. Like Diani sent me a group of outlines, and we used one of those outlines for the Is This Love episode, which is focused on her love life. And then for the code switching episode, that was something that she kind of came up, like wanted to do, and I wanted to do as well. And so I kind of took that from a realization that my parents told me a while back that I would need to be able to adapt my voice for any situation. So I guess the way I sound, a lot of people would perceive that as white sounding. And my parents were like, you should probably find a way to sound a little black. And so I was like, oh, okay. So that's a part of it. And then also for the third episode, that was actually an encounter that I had with Diani at a party with a friend of hers, where it was just like everything she's saying, she meant so well, but everything she said was so offensive. And so it's just kind of, you know, that weird microaggressions that people, the most liberal leaning, bleeding heart, beautiful people I know will still be like, oh my God, I love your hair, and reach out and touch it. And they'll still be like, you watch Insecure? Have you heard of Atlanta? And it's like, yes, I have.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's it's just the way you think about things based on your perspective, right? Or the way you don't think about things, right? That's could you if you're like comfortable, what code switching could like what I don't know if it seems familiar. What is that? Yeah.
The code switching is basically changing the way you sound to fit the group of people that you're around. So, you know, it does happen. Like, I'm from the South. I'm originally from Texas. If I go back home, then all of a sudden I do have more of a Southern draw, just because it's from the benefit of being home. You don't, sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not. Like, a friend once caught me code switching, and we both called it out because it was crazy, because I was talking to her and then I had to switch over to talking to a security guard, and my voice, like the tone, the pitch, everything went up. And I was like, why did I even feel like I needed to do that? But even as a woman, you know, you're taught, don't have too deep of a voice, and make sure that when you talk like this, and always want to sound pleasant. So it's something that everyone does. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Probably primarily like subconsciously, you know, without even realizing it. Yeah. Well, yeah, no, crazy sexy Oreos. It seems
crazy
like
sexy Oreos.
It looks pretty pretty entertaining. So what do you have anything else in the works? Anything you're cooking up right now?
Oh man, I'm just trying to survive this pandemic. I don't know about you. No, I do make body products. So I've been working on that. I run a little small company called Streams Gazelle, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm an actor mainly, so it's just also now starting to pick up audition-wise, and so I have a few auditions lined up today, and so that's kind of the focus, just focusing on getting the series out there, doing my actor stuff, doing my herbalist soap stuff, so yeah.
Cool. Could you say the name of your soap company one more time?
Yes, it's called Crazy Sexy Oreos. It's part of the There You Are Black Voices block of short films.
Neato. Cool. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me, Adrian. I'm really excited to check out Crazy Sexy Oreos. I think everybody is. I really can't get over the name.
I know. I was like, what's the call about? Who cares?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. You can check out her short at pdxff.com. Yeah, thank you so much. Probably learn a thing or two as well. Yeah.
You have a good one.
Cool. You too. Alrighty. That was Adrian. Cool. So we're going to move right along and bring our next director in to chat about their project. Hello. Oh, go ahead.
Hi. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Cool.
Great. How's it going, Wesley?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm excellent. Just having a breakfast with my girlfriend. It's our 3-year anniversary today. So I was like, listen, I know this is very important, but this is a little more important.
Yeah. Well, congrats on 3 years.
Thank you.
That's great to hear. We love to see it. Why don't you introduce yourself in your film?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Baldev Sandhu, and our film it's a short film called The American Dream. The quick pitch of that, I guess, is three wide-eyed immigrants sit around a campfire discussing their American dreams the night before they cross the border into the U.S. I wasn't the one who wrote this. The script was written by my friend and teammate on my sketch comedy team here in Los Angeles. He wrote it. His name's Fernando A. Funes. He wrote the sketch, and we put it on our show live. It was hilarious. We thought it was too good not to like do anything else with. You know, we were like, this can be elevated past just like a live performance. So he translated the script into Spanish because we felt that, you know, the story is told better in the most organic, natural way possible, and so it should be told that way. So he translated the script. We ran some private rehearsals. Our other teammate, Valerie Vasilis, she was our producer for it because there's just so many details to wrangle, you know, as any filmmaker understands. And we just went for it, and it was awesome. We shot it in one night in this like small kind of like town in Lancaster County, which is, you know, we're going for like a desert vibe, you know, like they're camping out in a desert overnight. And so we went out there, and it was funny enough that like it was originally going to be an overnight shoot anyways, right? Because it's dark at night. But then what ended up happening was that across the street from the place that we rented, there was like a family having like a fiesta during the day. So there was like a mariachi band and like just like people partying and drinking and just like loud celebration. Just the most irony, as Fernando said, it was just the irony of all ironies. And, you know, we had to wait until like after midnight for the party to wind down. Like we couldn't even join them for a beer ourselves, you know, because we still got to work. So we're just kind of sitting there kicking rocks, just waiting for them to stop.
Watch everyone else have fun. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was cool, man. It was an awesome, like, you know, again, like my friend Fernando wrote it, like it's very autobiographical for him, you know. It very much is the story of like the people he has known growing up in Southern California. It rings very true to his experience. And, you know, I directed a lot of videos for our sketch team. So when we were like, we should do this, I was like, can I help in this way? Cause then, like, I relate to the message so hard anyways, you know. It is, you know, like obviously it's a very specific experience that he's talking about, but I mean, you know, like at the same time, like I can project that out onto all immigrant experiences, and I just think it's a great story, and I think it's important to amplify marginalized voices, you know, and, you know, with humor, because everybody likes it when it's funny. Everybody likes to laugh more than they like to cry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, comedy is just the other end of tragedy, right? They're both parts of life. So how do you go about sort of directing someone else's script? You know, someone who's close to you, who, you know, they're kind of, you know, obviously scripts are important to the writers. So how do you handle that?
Well, that's crazy because this is the first time I directed something that I didn't write. Because normally I will only, you know, it's like, because it's just such an undertaking and you really want to do right by it, you know what I mean? So it's like I don't even know if I would give somebody something that I wrote to direct. Like I'd be like, no, you don't get to it. This is mine. So I really am so grateful that Fernando trusted me with this, you know, because I know it must be really difficult to like kind of like hand over the reins at a certain point. Like, you know, he took it as far as he could with writing, you know, and it is great. And you know, we just have to trust each other. And, you know, I put in extra care because this is his project, you know, like I don't, like where I would make maybe more reckless, careless decisions with something that is my own, you know, I don't want to do that for somebody else's vision. Like you know, filmmaking is already such a collaborative team experience, you know, and I think that this kind of, you know, attention to somebody else's work to honor their vision only kind of enhances that message or feeling.
For sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, sounds like you went about it respectfully. And yeah, no, I mean, definitely, no, I totally relate. I mean, a script is like a baby. You don't want to just give that to someone else.
Yeah, no. I carried it for 9 months. Well, I didn't do anything.
So what was your biggest challenge in put aside from the midnight party kind of blowing up the
Yeah,
spot?
sure. I mean, the other big challenge, I mean, really was just finding the location, you know, because it's like it's supposed to be like kind of deserty, you know, they're like camping out like near the U.S.-Mexico border or somewhere, so it's like it has to be like feel like it's secluded. So you know, it was just like obviously around LA, there's all these desert areas that you can just go and you don't even need to ask anyone to shoot. But it's like, how do you get power out there? You know, how are you going to run the lights? How are you going to charge
Yeah.
the batteries? So it's like, you know, again, our other sketch teammate, Valerie Vasilis, she's amazing. She's so organized and detail oriented and just like truly like a great team player. And like, she kind of took the lead on that. I was like, look, I don't want to worry about that. Can you figure it out? And she found us like a place, you know, she found this guy who like rents out his like property in Lancaster County somewhere, you know, like 2 hours away from LA. You know, he's got like that, like his backyard looks like a desert, you know, so it just, and there's like a broken down truck and like it's just like all this is weird stuff everywhere, but there's like one corner of it that was like, if we just shoot in this one direction, because the whole thing is just like a conversation around a campfire, so we're only shooting in one direction, so if we can just block off like a corner of this guy's yard, we can make it work. And once that was all together, like it just, the rest of it just kind of like just, it felt, it's like dominoes at that point.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. I love asking that just because it's like, you know, originally you were like, you know, we just wrote the script and then we put it together and we shot it. But I mean, it really is like, you know, so much work goes into filmmaking, and producing is basically like magic, you know. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't wanna worry about this,
don't ask
worry
too many
about
questions.
it. Yeah. Oh, I had another thought, but I lost it. But yeah, no, it's just all the small things add up on a film, really.
Yeah, really,
It sounds like you had a good team.
yeah, really good team, and then all just every step of the way, you know, we were able to just call in a ton of favors, you know what I mean? So that saved so much money. Like, you know, we had, you know, my friend color corrected it for us and sound designed it, like, you know, and I edited it for us too. So it's like, we're just wear as many hats as possible. So it is just every little thing that you can, any person who can contribute in the smallest of ways, it really just adds up, because it is so much work to make anything. And this is only like 5 minutes long, you know what I mean? Like it's a short piece with like limited, not too many moving parts. Like it's pretty straightforward, but even that, like it does take so much planning and work and effort. Like it ended up taking still like 6 months or something. So
Yeah. Wow. Well, your hard work paid off, I think.
Yeah.
Do you have any upcoming projects? Can we give a shout?
Yeah, I mean, personally, yes, I do. I won't try and speak for the other people on in the group, but for me, yeah, I work with my girlfriend a lot. She's also a comedian. We're both stand-up sketch comedians, so we do stand-up together. Right now, we're also working on 2, since you know live performing isn't really happening unless you know you're trying to risk it all to make 10 people laugh on a sidewalk. You know, there's not too much going on, so we're trying to write a lot more. We are working on a mini animated web series called Lab Rats, which is pretty fun. We're hoping, I mean, who knows how long that'll take to turn around. Animation takes forever. And then we're also working on writing a feature together. It's like an end of the world kind of comedy, kind of born out of these times. So we'll see. Hopefully it'll be more funny than sad, and hopefully none of the stuff that we write comes true. We're gonna take it in a darker direction. I just really hope this is more creative freedom than predicting the future, you know?
Yeah, fingers crossed on that. Hopefully reality turns into a funny comedy eventually. Well, thank you so much, Baldev, for chatting with me.
Hey, this was great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. You can check out The American Dream at pdxff.com, along with the rest of the films we've been talking about. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. See ya.
Of course. Yeah. Cool. So, moving right along, we're going to bring our next director in to talk about, you guessed it, their film. Hey, George. Oh,
hey.
Cool. Wait.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks very much for having me on.
Of course. So why don't you introduce yourself and your project?
Yeah, my name is George Blagden, and I've directed a short film called Lara, which started as a bit of a wacky little experiment. I kind of asked myself the question, could one person make a film entirely on their own with no help from anyone else? And I just sort of set about doing it and was expecting at every stage to kind of come across a hurdle that I couldn't do. And it was just an amazing learning experience, really. And I'm kind of surprised that I got something done, and that lovely people like yourselves are wanting to showcase it. It's just amazing. And, you know, Baldev was kind of like the perfect introduction, really, listening to him talk, you know, because it's so true. Like, I'm mainly an actor. I've worked for 10 years as an actor in film and television. And, you know, I know from just that one tiny little aspect of projects how difficult it is to get 30 seconds of something up onto a screen. And like Baldev was saying, you know, 5 minutes is it. And so, yeah, trying to do every element was a bit of an eye-opener.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, yeah, I just remember being on my first set and realizing like takes, like, oh, we're gonna be doing this for a while, like this one. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
just yeah. Well,
Yeah, no.
So like a one man film then is your project?
Yeah,
That's
a one-man film. I mean, I kind of had the idea when someone told me at Christmas this last year that someone said in passing in a conversation, anyone can upload anything to Amazon Prime. I was like, that can't be true. That's not true, surely. And turns out it is. You know, anyone's able to upload anything to these streaming sites now. And it made me think, you know, okay, so what part of the process am I not able to do now? In theory, I'm not a writer. I've never directed anything, but in theory, I was like, you know, that is often the element that filmmakers we find hard, is getting our work seen. And I thought, well, let's have a go. And so, yeah, it involved writing a script that could only involve one actor, me, and then, you know, be able to be shot by me as well at the same time. And so that was quite enjoyable, trying to write a 12 to 15 minute script with those limitations, coming up with an idea. And the obvious kind of idea that sprung to mind immediately was AI, and the film is a little piece on that. And, you know, I'm part of a block at the festival called Coping with the Turn, and it's a perfect block to be in. That kind of title is exactly it. Like, yeah, so it was a lovely experience.
Yeah, it sounds like quite the undertaking. I mean, like, yeah, a one man. Well, what was shooting like? Like literally, like did you just have a tripod and you just kind of like?
Yeah, so I have a Panasonic GH5 camera, some of you might know, which is kind of like a DSLR. I use it for self-tapes as an actor, and it gets quite a good image. And what I became fascinated with, what I learned most about, was the post-production. So, you know, I did all of the edit, the sound design, the grading, visual effects. There's a lot of visual effects in the film, and learning about how to transform image, you know, and essentially, I didn't take it this far, but essentially get an image from your iPhone, and if you sit with it long enough, you know, hundreds of hours at your laptop, you can make an image from an iPhone nearly look like it's been shot on an ARRI studio camera. Obviously not, but just that process of post-production and how to, you know, the magic of it and how to transform image. So yeah, I shot it like any project that I've been on as an actor, where I had a schedule, call sheets. I gave myself call sheets and shot lists and everything, and you know, went through the shooting schedule and shot it, and a couple of takes per setup. So yeah, it was a very sort of clinical way of filmmaking, but the result, it kind of catered to this story, because the story and the film is quite clinical anyway.
Right.
But yeah, I hope people enjoy it. And I'm kind of blown away, looking at some of the other films that you guys have selected to be part of the festival this year, like just to be in the same company as some of these guys, looking at their CVs and seeing the work that they've produced. It's just amazing, and amazing to see what people can do out there with such limited resources. And it makes me really excited about indie film and the future of it, especially in the world at the moment, where we're kind of having to work out how to do it on our own. So
for sure. Yeah, no, the mission of Portland Film, and I think independent film in general, has always been, diversity of voices and stories, because that's how you get the interest in stuff. So but yeah, I mean, freaking that's also how you get one man films like Lara. So I'm curious, what do you have any, like, I don't want to get too philosophical on you, but was there anything you kind of learned from this, one man creation process that you're gonna that'll like kind of stick with you beyond just like, editing and shooting, just sort of like
absolutely to never ever do it ever again. No, in all seriousness, like when I finished it, I sent it to my agent and some other people in the industry, and very quickly I realized that it could very easily be mistaken as a kind of screw you. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but to a lot of the rest of the industry and people that I've worked with for many years on set, for me to be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to tackle sound design. That shouldn't be a problem. And the biggest learning curve at the end of it is it can't be done. I mean, it can, but it shouldn't be done. And the important thing about our art form is collaboration. And the reason why I think a lot of us do it is to make bits of art as a group of people. And I'd say that was the biggest learning thing, getting to the end of it and going, okay, I've done that, but I cannot wait to make another one with a team, and and work with people who are at the top of their game, not just kind of, pretending that I know how to compose a score and throw up, and getting the most incredible composer, getting the most incredible cinematographer, and all working together at the top of our game to create something truly special. So yeah, I can't wait to make my next one.
Yeah, I mean, God, I really can't get over, like, yeah, as soon as you said it was a one man film, I was like, oh, okay, so he's a psychopath.
No, I mean, the work of a madman. Yeah.
So what do you have anything coming up, like any projects you're working on you want to talk about?
I have a couple of projects as an actor. That I've got a film in Austria that I'm going to go and shoot in theory next week. We'll see if the flight takes off. And another film in the new year. But yeah, I am starting to talk to other people now about the next thing that I do as a director, and I would love for it to be something that I haven't written. And I know that a lot of directors kind of, are very passionate about wanting to do their own work for obvious reasons. I really want to tackle something that someone else has written now, and just see if working with someone, and trying to visualize what they've got in their head, that process really interests me. So there's a couple of things, but nothing that I can really concretely talk about.
Sure. Well, yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes, right? Yeah. But clearly you're motivated, so I don't doubt that you're going to be busy pretty soon. We'll go get it.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. That's I'm really excited to check Lara out. I love experiments like this. Thank you so much for chatting with me, George, talking about your film. Anyone who's interested, yeah, of course. Anyone who's interested, pdxff.com. Check out Lara, George's film. Thank you so much for chatting.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. So we do still have 2 directors to get to today, but real quick, we're going to run a few clips to showcase some other films that are at the film festival that you can check out at pdxff.com. So here we go.
Hey, I'm Rooftop, and I'm a fashion designer, filmmaker, and creative director of the Brand Advisory. I'm currently in New York City, and my film is Time Ain't Enough.
Time ain't enough, Lord in my hands. Devil on my shoulder, he enticing me to dance. Devil on my shoulder, fallen angel by his stand. Why so much pain in the mirror? Watch about every other chance.
Time is a music video by Glenn Sayan that explores Glenn's past as a kid, struggling in school, and how that may affect his relationship with his parents. Despite Glenn's parents wanting him to succeed in school, Glenn understands that his heart really lies in the arts. This concept was very personal to me. As I was writing this treatment, I was contemplating dropping out of school because I knew that the only reason why I was there in the first place was to appease my parents. I ended up staying in school, long story short, and I don't necessarily recommend dropping out to anyone, but did make for a good concept for this video, so shout out to that. Here's Time Ain't Enough. Enjoy.
Hi, my name is Sophie Lescat. I'm from Switzerland and made a short film called Newspaper News. It's about a woman who reads the news in a newspaper and experiences the terrible truths of our time. It's also about my relationship with the news and how I still try to find hope even if all these terrible things are happening.
Hi, I'm Seattle filmmaker Wade Chitwood. I'm the writer, director, producer of the film The Prospector. My film is about a mysterious asteroid prospector who is searching the universe for his fortune. The prospector's journey takes him to a place where he has to look directly at his soul and decide what he's willing to sacrifice to achieve his ambitions. Portland rock band, the Shivas, they supply the soundtrack. Their music guides the viewer through the prospector's journey with a kind of foreboding 60s surf rock narration. I hope you enjoy the film. Thanks.
Cool. And we're back. It's me again, Wesley Crawford from PDX Film Festival, here at the Director's Chat. We do still have two more directors to talk to. They're going to come and answer a few questions about their movies. Real excited to get them in here. So without further ado, let's pop to our next director, Carl. Carl?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So why don't you introduce yourself and your film?
Sure. So my name is Carl Hansen. I'm a producer and director of Second Act Danny J. Gomez, which is a short documentary about the life of Danny Gomez, having survived Hurricane Katrina and then also a life-altering accident, and his path to becoming a working actor. He was just recently in New Amsterdam on NBC, but he and I met, a few years ago. The other thing to mention about this particular film, it was made as part of the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge. So we had 55 hours to create, write, shoot, edit, score, do sound design to make a finished film. So we had met 3 years ago, Danny and I, also on an Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge, which we ended up winning Best Film in that competition. And this year we were nominated for Best Editing for our awesome editor, Matthew Placentia. So it's a pretty awesome experience. Love being here.
Yeah. So did that 55 hours included post? Like you needed
Correct.
a finished product? So
yeah.
Did you spend 50 of those hours editing then?
So the little bit of the experience of this one. So this is the first time it was a documentary challenge. So we sort of once we got the requirement that it was a documentary and that we had to start production, that's when the creativity started. So Danny and I, literally that night, it was like a Tuesday night, we did a Zoom interview. We just sat over Zoom because that's sort of the safe COVID way to make things these days. And I said, hey, just just, for the sake of us doing this, let's record this just in case this becomes something we can use for it. Because literally we talked for 3 hours trying to find the story. And Danny just kind of expounded on his life and all these amazing stories that he has. And he was so open and welcoming, and really gave me the gift of trust for telling this story. He was a producer and also a director on it as well. So we were working very closely together. But from that 3-hour Zoom interview on a Tuesday night after he got off of work, I mean, he was doing, I want to say Postmates, or, he was doing some work, that he does during the day. And then it's like at night at 10 p.m., it's like, hey, let's jump on a Zoom. And we talk for 3 hours. And that became the basis for this particular film. So the post didn't start it started the next day when I was trying to cut down what the story would be, but trying to find what the story was through a 3-hour conversation was very difficult to get it down to the time limit of, I want to say we had 5 minutes. We had to do it in 5 minutes.
Wow. Yeah. That's like that. I mean, that's like documentary filmmaking in a nutshell, right? Like let's try and find the story somewhere, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But on a super compressed time frame, it's like ultra compressed.
Yeah. I'd hope most aren't like, all right, we only have 3 hours to get this.
Right.
No, that just makes it all the more impressive, man. Because filmmaking's stressful when you have all the time in the world.
Right.
Yeah. So, what was, so you spent 3 hours developing the idea. What was kind of the rest of did you like make a schedule where you just kind of winging it and
sort of? So we knew we had to back into our deadline. The film was going to be due on Sunday at, I want to say like 7 p.m. So we had a very limited amount of time. So we just had to back into what that deadline was. So we knew basically what the story was going to be. It was Danny talking about his life, but he had so many amazing stories. It was like the amount of stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor could make another whole film, right? And in fact, we've been talking about expanding this into a feature-length documentary because I think there's so much really to be told from this story. And especially Danny's experience. Like when you see this film, you'll see like Hurricane Katrina hits like 3 days after he kind of starts his acting career. And it just like that throws his life into a tailspin. It just like makes, he starts making these decisions to come out to Los Angeles and become an actor, and sort of all these obstacles that get in the way. So, finding what that story was to tell in this 5-minute film, because that's also part of the competition, is you have a time limit of how long it can actually be, that we were backing into that Sunday deadline, knowing we had to make it into a 5-minute piece. And so me working with the editor, working with Matthew to figure out also how to make it look like it wasn't done over Zoom or done, via pandemic, because a lot of other things look that way, right? I mean, it's like this Zoom look, we see it on the talk shows, we see it all over the place. So I'm like, okay, let's challenge ourselves and figure out a way that we can make this not look like it was done during the pandemic. So I came up with this idea, like, what if we did like this After Effects animation look to the Zoom interview? So it made it look like it was sort of hand drawn, and Matthew worked really hard to make it look natural and real, and came up with these awesome effects. Like we did a bunch of different tests, but this was all again during this time limit. Like, okay, make this look like this. I'm going to work on the story. We're going to figure out what the story is, and everything was kind of happening on top of one another. So that even on Sunday, when we were supposed to deliver, like the composer was composing the music that morning. Jordan Plotner did an amazing job with the score. And then we had a sound designer, John T.M. Higgins, who came in and really did a pass of the sound design to make it sound really good. And we got it in on time, right? I mean, it was like, that's always the challenge with these timed film competitions. But to create a film that I would hope that nobody looks at and goes like, yeah, that was made in 55 hours. The hope is that it looks like it was made in a longer period of time, because really all that matters is the story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely seems like you nailed the approach. I'm so excited to watch it. I love the like I said, the experiments, the innovation, the fact that you acknowledge that everyone has the Zoom thing, just great to hear. But so I'm curious, as far as like other projects outside of second act, how do you normally go about like finding the story, finding the idea? Is it like,
It really just varies. So what's interesting is I've been a timed filmmaker, a competitive filmmaker, essentially for the last 16 years, working the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge is just one of those competitions. I've done the 48-hour film project here in LA. We won Best Film in Los Angeles last year with the film that we made, Connections. But so sort of through the years, I've been making these timed films. And in those particular instances, I'm not exclusively a timed filmmaker. I just happen to have a passion for it and really enjoy it. It's really fun for me in this compressed environment, especially as a working dad as well. It's like I have a son and I have a job, and to be able to make something in a very short and compressed amount of time, but then have it go and live on and have a life at film festivals, right? That's really the goal. So so I would say traditionally in these timed competitions, story just kind of emerges. Like we stay up all night, Friday night writing, we shoot all day Saturday, and we're cutting and post like from Saturday into Sunday. And at every step along the way, the story's kind of getting refined. Like the script gets written, right? It's like they always say, what the three movies that are made: the script that's written, the one that's shot, and then the one that's actually edited that everybody gets to see. But through every stage of that process, similar to a non-timed film, right? It's like I've had these experiences on longer pieces as well, that you're finding nuggets and things that you can kind of make it work. And what I have to say is, in these compressed time frames, when you're doing these competitions, it kind of changes the way your brain thinks about stuff, and it doesn't allow you to hem and haw and worry about like, oh, how is this going to be taken, or what's this? You kind of just have to go instinctually and go with your gut, and use your team and use everybody around you, kind of weighing in and going like, yeah, that works. Yeah, that doesn't work. Great, make a decision. Go. So I would venture to say, on every professional thing I've ever worked on, I mean, I'm a production professional for my day job, but invariably every decision that has to get made typically gets made at the last second. It just is the nature of it. That's how it works. So I'm like, well, let's take the time frame out of the equation and just like start just making decisions and see where it lands. And it just turned into this awesome filmmaking thing that I never even knew existed until I started doing these competitions. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, well, sounds like you found your niche. That's awesome. So do you have any upcoming projects, any upcoming competitions you're looking at, you want to talk about?
Sure. So interestingly enough, this past weekend, we made another 48-hour film project. So we just finished it on Sunday, and it is now in competition here in Los Angeles. And I think the screenings are next Saturday, like the 24th or so. But also one of the films that we made in quarantine, this one called Who Won the War. It was a comedy that was made entirely over Zoom, but it doesn't look like it was made over Zoom. Because again, we put this interesting effect on it and filter, and makes it look like an Instagram live feed. That film has now gotten into 2 film festivals, one of which is the Portland Comedy Film Festival, which I'm driving up for in 2 weeks to go and watch it on a drive-in movie screen, which I've never seen one of my films on a drive-in movie screen, especially one that was made during quarantine, where I directed from this very chair, where it was all done over Zoom. So, that's like the most immediate thing. And then of course, second act, we're trying to expand into a feature. And I have another feature script that I'm working on with my friend Scott, who is just in the film we made over the weekend, that we're trying to make into our first feature together. Nice.
Well, that's all super exciting. You maybe want to look into freaking timed competitions I got going on. You've inspired me.
Well, and what I'll say too, for any other filmmakers watching and people who want to make films, but sometimes feel like either a budget gets in the way or time gets in the way, some things you start and they will never get finished. A film competition is awesome because you come out with a finished film. And you come out with a finished film that, whether you're happy or not with how it went in the competition, you can then affect it and then do some more post on it and make it nicer if you want to. But you now have a film. You now have a film that you can then take. And I've been doing it for 16 years. So for me, getting what I call my filmmaker reps in, right? It's like going to the gym and working out, but this is from a filmmaking perspective, that it just makes you a better filmmaker, makes you a better storyteller. I can say that for myself. It has truly improved my storytelling abilities by doing these competitions.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for chatting here today. I'm so excited to watch. I'm excited to watch all these, but having the context there, like this is a freaking 55-hour film. That's awesome. Anyone else who's been inspired by Carl can go check his film out at pdxiff.com. Or you can say Portland Film Festival into your voice remote, which is pretty neat. So yeah, pdxff.com. Second act, Danny J. Gomez, director Carl.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
having me.
Of
Awesome.
course.
I
Thanks.
look forward to everybody's films.
Cool. Well, thank you for taking the time.
Of course. Thank you, and see you around the festival.
All right. Cool. So 55-hour film. That's crazy. Cool. So moving on to I believe our last director of the day. But like I always say, last but not least, just last. Bring him in, Hunter. Hey, how's it going?
Hey man, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All good. Yeah, I made mine in 55 hours too. So
Yeah?
No, I actually lucked out with mine. I shot it about a week before the whole U.S. shutdown
Oh,
for the
yeah?
pandemic, so I really lucked out. It would have been a very different film.
Yeah, no, that's you got the buzzer beater in there and got your
Oh
movie.
yeah.
Awesome. Why don't you introduce yourself in your film?
Oh yeah, my name is Hunter Red Horse Arthur. I directed A. It's about a young college Native American kid who is diagnosed with a rare eye disease, and he has to find his purpose in life. And that's a lot to make in a short film, but we kind of just played a fit and ran a fit.
Yeah. Well, and so did you write it as well?
Yeah, I wrote it, directed it. I starred in it, but I didn't want to star in it. I tried to look for Native American actors around Phoenix, and I got one, and he's in the film, but he plays like my friend. So there wasn't a lot of people to go to right now. I was like just searching, and I was like, you know what? If anyone's gonna do it, I'll go down with my ship. So, and I made it, and I did it. I'll say that.
I mean, hey, you're freaking at the Portland Film Festival, and like what Carl was saying, you made it. I mean, it's always just impressive, especially because if you kind of just made it happen the way you said, it's always impressive getting a finished product out there. Especially,
Yeah, so much. It was just about getting the I would say it made me had a better understanding for actors themselves. I was like, wow, they actually do a lot of research and prep. Where the first shoot, I didn't. I was like, you know what? It's me in it. How hard can it be? I know the lines. I wrote them. And I just winged it. And then I was like, wow, tonally, this is like over here and this is over here. So, I had to really make them make sense. And I just studied it. And I watched some like actors on YouTube to see like what they think. So,
yeah, YouTube University.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I had a question and lost it. But yeah, no, that totally tracks. I mean, just the idea of being in front of and behind the camera, always stresses me out. So had you directed or acted, or you hadn't acted before? Had you directed?
I have never acted before, but I saw it as for directing. I'd made like little tiny like student projects, like they were like 2 minutes assignments that need to be done. But this was like the first real short film I did that required everyone. Where before I was kind of like the shyer kid who was like, I can do it with me, I could do it with a friend, and I can make it work. But this one required like 20 plus people to help me. And so yeah, that's kind of how I got started. So directing it, I was, you look up to your heroes almost, like people you watch. You're like, okay, I like Christopher Nolan, I like David Fincher. But this is not a horror or a thriller. So I'm like out of luck right here. So, and then you're thinking of like who's native and who can make comedy. And you kind of open that book and I'm like, oh, there's Smoke Signals. That's the one film I only know. So watching that, I'm like, what pieces can I find here that I can help myself, which I did.
Yeah, well, that's good. Finding your own voice, right?
Yeah.
So what was aside from becoming an actor, what was the biggest challenge in production and getting the film all together?
I would say being prepared. That was the hardest part. It was so pre-production kind of can be under that bubble. I had to really kind of sit there and like, okay, I can't just shoot it. Because the first time it failed, I showed it in class and I got the hardest feedback I ever got in my life. And I was like, oh no. And I just felt like Michael Scott from The Office when everyone makes fun of him. I just felt like leaning over, just hurting inside. because I've never gotten feedback like that before. But the pre-production the second time, I mean, I think I took 3 years and 4 years of film school into a month, and I watched films daily, read scripts, and I just try to understand the blocking of it, the formatting, the aspect ratio, try to see from a viewpoint of another, production process like editing or even like, cinematography. And I try to see, okay, what can we do that can simplify what we just did? And what can we make work? And so the pre-production process just blew up. My producers helped me, my cast helped me, and they came back and they redid it with me. And I told them, I said, look, I messed up the first time. The second time, this is what I want to do. Believe in me. Also, I need you for my grade to graduate. So it was a lot of stakes. That was like the biggest stake right there. I think making a good film was like, that was there, but it was like not even in my idea scopes. It was just like, I got to graduate. Other than that, and little did I know when I meant graduating, I meant, being a COVID graduate. But, that was the goal.
Yeah. So to clarify, so it was a project you made for class, and then did you refine it as part of the class, or did you just kind of personally want to like improve upon it?
I could have turned it in a piece like that was how it was the first time, but the second time around, I think it was more of a personal. It was like, I am a good filmmaker. I believe these things, these people I watch. I'm like, and I'm not a person that can give up on myself. So I'm like, I can do this. I just got to believe in it. And I went to work, and luckily enough, everyone was around me to help me and guide me and, give me feedback that, pushed me. But I just didn't want to give up. I really wanted to make a good project, and grateful enough it got into the Portland Film Festival, which I was excited for. And, even being on here, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was inspiring stuff listening to you, honestly, because that is independent filmmaking, right? Trying stuff, seeing what works, bouncing back from your mistakes. So what's one thing then that you want people to take away from this movie after watching it?
I think the idea of representation in Hollywood. It's a story about a character who gets eye disease. I'm very layered, and I learned that through the writing process. But it's about representation too. It's about a kid who wants to kind of go into the film world to achieve this because he gets a fellowship, and the eye disease comes along the way, and it's a huge conflict for him. It's a roadblock, and he has to figure this out. He wants to go into this film because he got a fellowship, for a writing fellowship. But his father was a typecasted actor in the 80s, and as a kid, you watch a lot of Native American films. You see a lot of, stereotypical roles. You're like, and, myself growing up, you're like, I kind of want to challenge that. I think there's something there that I can improve upon. There's hundreds of people in LA right now that are making a difference. But myself, I was like, I like to be a part of that little puzzle. And, maybe it's a little short film. It's tiny, it's small, but it's at the Portland Film Festival. I can, share my voice in it. And, that was the underlying layer, is like, hey, us Native American actors, stories, we're here. And, we can be creative and innovative too.
Nice. That's awesome. That really is awesome, because, like I said, the mission of Portland Festival and independent film, diverse voices and different stories and different perspectives, like your own. Yeah.
I wish it was in person. That would have been so cool to go there.
Yeah, it'd be neat, but I don't know. I think this is a good.
Yeah, I like it though.
Yeah, nice little chat. Yeah. So, well, do you have any upcoming projects that you're working on?
Yeah, right now I'm just writing. So I'm a writer too, and I'm trying to find ways you can do that. But it's writing like a drama series and a comedy series called Pangea. It's like a Friends-esque sitcom with like 6 friends from different continents. So I'm writing that one, and because Pangea, like they're all connected.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I'm writing that one. Yeah. And I'm doing another short film though. Because I watched the People versus O.J. Simpson, and I was like, I want to tell a story that's a case file, but also a perspective of the brothers, and I want to intertwine those stories where it's very dramatic and thrilling. And also doing with Black Lives Matter, which is what I wanted to do around that, you know, scope of that, because that was such a huge movement over the summer and it continues today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I'm excited to see what you cook up next. I feel like as long as you follow your gut, I know what happens next is going to be good for sure. Just keep telling your stories, right?
Yeah,
Cool.
thank you, Wesley, and the Portland Film Festival for having me.
Of course. Thank you for stopping by. You can watch. Wait, how do you say it?
A. So like how Fonzie says like A, or like anyone says A, what's up? Native
Gotcha.
Americans kind of tend that like A, they carry it out.
Right, gotcha. All right. Well, you can watch Hunter's movie at pdxff.com, along with the rest of the movies we talked about today. Thank you so much for chatting with me, Hunter.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Of course. All righty. So I believe that concludes the director's chat for this morning. You know, obviously, film festivals going on all week. We have more directors' chats coming, more individual chats, and obviously, all the films are available at pdxff.com. Get passes to see a bunch, get tickets to just see one, go to our events, go to the live streams, support independent film. So, yeah, my name is Wesley Crawford. Thank you for spending these past 2 hours with me and these lovely directors. Thank you so much to all the directors who came to talk about their films and listen to me pester them with questions. And as always, that's a big thank you from the Portland Film Festival. So